you know what happened. You know what I mean? A lot of people say it's accident, but I made that happen. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't like that, but it's a fight. Things like that happen. And
Joshua Van dropped a shocking claim, saying he intentionally targeted Alexandre Pantoja's arm in their matchup. In a recent conversation with Ariel Helwani, Joshua describes the whole confusion that spread at the fight night. He said that at first he could not get the situation and was a bit unsure about the winner, but later, when he was being awarded the belt, he realized that the winner was himself. He also expressed his excitement, energy, and puzzlement at the same time, because even after the referee stopped the fight, he was still in the mood to beat Pantoja.
No. That's why I was kind of hesitant to ground and pound him, right? And I looked, and then the ref didn't stop it, so I was like, all right, let me go for it. And as I go for it, I think the ref know what's going on and things like that. So when the ref stopped, step in, then I was like, oh, I guess they stopped. And then I didn't know whether I was winning or whether I win or I lost. But I was celebrating and shit, so.
Meanwhile, Joshua praised Pantoja's skills and showed respect for his great conscience, as Pantoja did not blame Van for the fractured arm. However, Josh revealed that he pushed Pantoja and broke his arm a bit purposefully, although it was not planned, but his act made it happen. So Joshua denounced himself for Pantoja's injury.
He's a great champion, and, he took responsibility for whatever happened, you know what I mean? And that's why I respect him so much, and I think he deserves a rematch for sure.
When you say you made that happen, what do you mean by that? Was that something that you did on purpose?
Well, he kicked me and I pushed him.
Right.
Of course, I pushed him, but I didn't think he was going to break his arm. But it happened. You know what I mean?
Many discussions are on board for the Fighter of the Year. Chael Sonnen gives his opinion in favor of Joshua Van, which is getting contradictions because people are not at the side of Van. In contrast to Van, who is not getting the fame, Merab Dvalishvili is achieving the credit of being the best fighter in the public. However, the decision is still pending as judgments are being received from the analysts before the final announcement.
I put out Joshua Van. I understand I'm not going to win the argument, but I'm going to make the argument. And there was so much praise put on Merab. Merab had 4 title defenses. Chris Weidman, for example, with Merab, even in defeat, goes, listen, he might have lost one, but he did one more than anyone else did, and they were all title fights, and he made a great argument, and I don't disagree with any of it. I could see where you could give Merab Fighter of the Year in spite of a loss. 2 years ago, just for perspective, I gave it to...
Chael pointed out that Merab had great fights and defenses this year, which is why he is being suggested for the Fighter of the Year. However, Chael is trying to convince people for Van, who fought 4 times this year and got a title opportunity. He claimed that although both are the best fighters in their own way, the main point is that recognition does not need perfection.
Van had 4 fights. One was a number 1 contenders fight, which, by the way, I believe is going to win Fight of the Year. And one was a world title fight. So I don't see the huge distinction in what Merab did, particularly when Van also did 4 fights and, by the way, got them all right. I know that this argument is different. I know that. This is not an anti-Merab piece. I'm just telling you that I want you to save one specific thought when it comes to Joshua Van. One very specific thought when it comes to the idea that he should not be able to celebrate this world championship.
Closing his comments, Chael suggested a rematch for both Joshua and Pantoja. He thinks that people will start admiring Van if he beats Pantoja again. For Chael, 4 fights and wins in just a year really mean something. That is why he is personally choosing Van for the best contender of the year.
If he gets a rematch with Pantoja and he goes out and he whips Pantoja by any means, if it goes to a judge's decision and he whips him, if it goes to a 3rd round and he stops him, just for example, you're not going to look back at this first fight the way you are currently seeing it. I think that you need to reserve judgment. I think you need to keep one thing and one thing in mind only, which is Joshua Van is the champion of the world. He made 4 walks. He got it right 4 times. Joshua Van's my pick for Fighter of the Year.
Going forward, Michael Bisping and Paul Felder talked about the messy situation on the fight night, as many people were a bit concerned whether it was Pantoja's elbow or shoulder that hurt. Apart from the people in the audience watching the contest live, analysts also kept tweeting on the rumor spread until Dana White made it clear to them that Pantoja's shoulder is hurt.
Poor guy.
Brutal shoulder injury.
And there's a guy that's not feeling sorry for himself, brutal shoulder injury. What is all this, right? What is going on? I'm going on Twitter and all I see people, I mean, it looked like an elbow to me. It certainly was an elbow injury, but I'm seeing, so Helwani and a bunch of people all tweeted about it and whatnot.
Yeah,
Oof.
that's definitely an elbow. Now, when I saw the stuff about the shoulder.
Oh, it's that bit there.
I thought maybe, okay, it could be both, but there's definitely an elbow injury that occurred. I think something got lost in translation, like we were talking about before we even started the show. And then it got doubled down because Dana went on the...
Breaking through the Pantoja clip, which he posted right after the defeat, both Bisping and Paul praised him for not accusing Van of the injury. They said that Pantoja really showed mature behavior by claiming that it was not in his fate to win from Van that night. They discussed how some fighters carry positivity regardless of the situation and do not say anything hurtful.
You might want to pray that your shoulder heals up as well as your elbow. But it was just saying that's Joshua's destiny. It was his destiny to win the belt. And I just thought, when I saw that little bit of the clip, I thought that was beautiful, man. I thought, talk about, just being graceful in defeat. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and not just harping on the fact that, he only got it because I posted weird, I dislocated this or that. No, he's a guy that understands that things are kind of written in the stars sometimes ahead of time. And this is the way it was meant to be. And this is his plan. And this is how he's got to move forward and figure it out from here. And hopefully...
While giving best wishes for Pantoja's health, Bisping and Paul also discussed the next matchup, which could possibly be held for Joshua. They said that Joshua might be fighting Tatsuro Taira in the coming months. This fight will be happening in Japan. However, nothing is confirmed yet, as everyone is waiting for Dana's announcement regarding the next matchup.
Now, if they need to go and put that belt on the line in the meantime, sit back, recover from your injuries. Whenever you're ready, you're the next guy fighting for that belt. No, hands down.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious they should do Joshua Van versus Tatsuro Taira. I mean,
on fight too.
He just took out Brandon Moreno for crying out loud in the second round.
God.
Did it kind of
easy. He did it kind of easy.
He did. I was hesitating to say that. He got caught in an inverted triangle. There was no real danger, but, Moreno's going to try it. And then he dominates him in the second round and finishes him, brutally. So that's going to be the fight. They're talking about maybe doing that in Japan. Did you see that?
Similar to Bisping and Paul, Sean O'Malley and Daniel O'Malley talked about the chaos regarding the injury of Pantoja. They shed light on Pantoja's emotional state and discussed how painful it is when a person such as Pantoja tries so hard for his whole life, goes through crazy camps, and then, suddenly, for something unusual, the fights stop, and a man cannot even show his skills. For them, this situation is so frustrating, and they feel really bad for Pantoja.
I seen his elbow, fucked, and I was
he was trying to tell the ref not to stop it, but it also was looked like he was in shock, didn't really know what happened.
So he dislocated his shoulder, yeah?
Dislocated his elbow or shoulder?
I think shoulder. I don't know. His whole arm looked fucked. His whole arm looked fucked. Oh my god! I can't look at shit like that. It makes my skin.
I screamed. Dude, I feel so bad for Pantoja. That sucks.
That's his sons,
fifth title defense.
His sons, when he was walking out of the cage, were just bawling their eyes out.
Fifth title defense, just running through to the division. He's getting a little bit older. These going through these camps is brutal. You make the fight, you make weigh-ins, you're in there, you're in shape, you're ready to go. And for something like that to happen, that sucks, dude.
Leading the conversation forward, so Sean and Daniel also discussed the joyful moments of Joshua. They talked about how people are criticizing him for celebrating the victory, but Sean and his companions defend Van because for them, it was a big moment for him. Juror said that Joshua's feelings and excitement are also understandable as a fighter waits so long for his win, and when the moment comes, anybody can lose control over reality.
But then Joshua Van, it's a weird moment for Joshua Van, 24 years old. I think he's the second youngest UFC champion, right?
I seen a lot of people judging how he celebrated afterwards. I would have celebrated.
Why would you not celebrate?
I had an argument with someone, not an argument, I had a debate with someone too. They're like, why are you celebrating like that?
I would have got up and
You're celebrating. He's making life-changing money for him. He's UFC champion of the world.
Right.
It's like, if anything, you're celebrating that. You're not celebrating the actual defeat. Like, I won. Because you don't want to win like that. He doesn't. He's a warrior. He doesn't want to win like that either.
Yeah, for sure. But also, it's like,
After sharing their thoughts on both contenders' circumstances, Sean and Daniel said that it was partially Pantoja's own fault to put himself in this situation because Joshua threw him for the push-up from Pantoja. Later, they tried to predict the next matchup for Joshua, which would be held with Tatsuro Taira, and they appreciated this new contest. They also seem eager for a rematch of Pantoja and Joshua, but Pantoja would not be ready for this.
even if it was, I don't know.
If I was Pantoja, yeah.
He still put him in that position to do that too, though.
Yeah.
He caught a kick.
You know? He caught him. I
mean, hopefully Pantoja's shoulder's not too bad. Get popped back in, and they can have a rematch.
Yeah, they're gonna have to run that back, right?
Yeah. Or you do the Japanese fella versus Joshua Van. That would be an interesting fight too.
That's a good fight. Yeah. I popped into Tim's stream. I popped into yours a little bit, but
I went live on Twitch for a little bit, just like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
But I was on Tim's and he said that Tyra Van would probably be the smartest one to make. But I'm pretty sure Pantoja would probably get his immediate rematch, right?
I mean, if he could fight, immediate rematch would make sense. If he's gonna be out for 9 months or whatever, then it's like you could do that. But
moving to the next conversation, Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell discuss the injury and the moment when it all happened. Both analysts tried hard to justify this act of Joshua to injure Pantoja by claiming that in combat sports, fractures are quite normal. They break down the entire clip of the fighting and notice that at first, Pantoja gave a shot to Joshua, and then in response to his act, Joshua threw him this way.
Understand, he threw a head kick to Josh Van, who caught it, and then he tries to escape, and Van actually kind of releases him, and on the landing, whatever happened there, he had the injury. That's fighting. Nobody fouled him. Sometimes you do a spinning kick and you twist your ankle. Sometimes you get your jaw broken by, you ran into his hip, or some kind of weird medical event. An injury happens just in the course of fighting itself, independent of someone, landing a knockout blow. That's part of fighting. The part where it becomes an issue is if it's from a foul. That's when you bring in the doctor, when you cause time.
While reflecting on the after effects of being injured, Luke and Brian discuss Pantoja's injury by comparing it to past UFC examples. They recalled the situation of Rashad Evan, who tried to look fresh again but could never regain that strength after a serious setback. Through this, they pointed out that Pantoja had rebuilt his reputation in these 2 years, and now everyone can just hope that this injury does not halt his momentum.
Friend of the program, Rashad Evans, who I used to do a podcast with, and we would go back and do story time over his career. I always bring up, Luke, I think you remember this, when Rashad, after losing the title, losing to John Jones, came back in that comeback win over Chael Sonnen, kneeing him to the stomach and finishing him. He looked like he was ready to be champion again, like he had completely retooled. And then he suffered the type of injury that he was never the same from again. You just hope for Pantoja that doesn't happen, considering the run he had been on, the fact that in the past 2 years he had completely turned his legacy, reputation around by improving his game so much. But you can't control these things. They are what they are. Before we get into this whole hullabaloo over Van's celebration,
giving their final remarks on Joshua, Luke and Brian noted that even before this fight, Joshua made it clear that his achievement is not just related to him, but it is linked to the whole country's reputation. They discussed how beautifully Joshua brought a victory not just for himself, but for Myanmar as well. They also highlighted that criticism is just a common thing that a fighter gets from the public and the haters, but Joshua should not give his thoughts to them, and he should keep celebrating the conquest.
What his success will mean to his country of Myanmar, that it would put it on the map in people's minds. And that's not a country that we talk about regularly, especially not in mixed martial arts. So I definitely agree with Van's posture from the standpoint of what he's saying, that the criticism is going to be there no matter what. So let me do me and enjoy my moment. But I'll also say this is a big ass moment for him, his extended family, his culture, his country. So I know he came to the US as a teenager, grew up in Houston, but that means a lot in that regard. And I'll give him that. So
also don't forget Burmese Python Ong Laen Sang, the guy out of Extreme Couture.
At the end of the whole conversation, Joshua's victory is not just an addition to his resume, nor is it another title change, but it shows a crucial and bright stage of his glory. With his success brought by positivity and hard work, Joshua has a glorious future for his homeland and his career as well. As analysts discussed, Joshua should ignore the negative comments from the public and haters, and he should continue growing. On the other hand, this fight brought a hard time for Pantoja, who is going to face a tough time for so long. Time. With this fractured arm, Pantoja would not get a chance to come back even if he were completely healthy and fulfilled. Eventually, a contest comes with good and bad fortune for two fighters. But this is dependent on fate's choice of who is going to suffer next, while who will have a bright future after the fight. The only thing is that every fighter should remain positive even after being harmed and should not spread negativity to the opponent. Just like Pantoja did, everyone should try to stay calm and positive after being defeated.